Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. This is the show where you just ask me questions and I answer them. This week's topic is business, and that is just business in general, not mini wargaming necessarily, or even about miniature wargaming businesses, although that can be part of the topic, but just business. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about because I just love business. That's why I started this business and ones before it. And while I love miniature wargaming, my favorite part about the business is running the business. And I love miniature wargaming as well. It's kind of a double win for me. Anyways, I'm going to be answering questions. And then next week's topic, I'm not going to take one of the suggested topics. I'm going to be actually creating a new one. And it's going to be a little different of a format because I've finally hired a web developer. They'll be starting in about a week and a half. And I have a big list of things that I want them to do to improve our website. Like, we're talking a lot of work. So you can expect to see changes incrementally over the next 6 months to a year, perhaps. And so what I want is your suggestions. Now, so I'm going to open up next week's show to be a How Can Mini Wargaming Be Better show. And I want to focus mostly on improving the website. But I also know that you're probably dying to talk about other things too that you'd rather want to see us do, things that we can do to improve our battle reports, games that you'd love to see us cover. Now, I don't just want everybody else to be like, cover Malifaux, cover this, cover that, cover the other thing. Like I'm looking for really good comments, well thought out comments, and reasons behind them. We actually have some in today's, like the very first comment by Vash1016 actually is kind of what I'm talking about, and just having a discussion on this whole quality versus quantity thing. So I'm looking for your advice. So this is the time to really be heard. Particularly answer this question: what would you like to see improved on the miniwargaming.com website in particular? That's where we're going to be starting with all the web development stuff. And then secondarily, if you also want to throw in a comment, what would you like to see us improve overall? And we'd love to hear your feedback. And just be specific and back up what you're talking about. And I don't mean back it up with proof that it's going to work, because nobody can really know that. But I mean, like, talk about it. Like, say, I want you to do this because I really feel that this would happen, and this and this and that, the other thing. And so I'm just going to kind of see what happens. And then next week I'll read through the suggestions and everything, and I'll respond to them, talk about them, talk about which ones are maybe going to happen, which ones are not likely to happen, which ones are likely to happen, and why, kind of getting my viewpoint as to why we do things the way we do and why I want to improve the certain aspects as well. And make sure that you thumb up the ones that you definitely agree with, and that way I can kind of see it as a voting mechanism for what people really want to see us do. And so leave those comments in the comment section below. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click the link in the video description to go and leave a comment on our website, because that's where I draw all of the comments from. So, like I said, this week's topic is business. And of course, if you want to make a topic suggestion, there will be a link in the video description below, as well as a link to the Sit and Vault for this week. So we'll have a 45-minute free show and then the 30-minute Sit and Vault. I'm assuming that we'll have both of those because I have 9 pages of comments, which is a little less than normal. But sometimes I don't get through more than 4 pages. And sometimes I can get through 10 to 15 pages. It all depends on how much I end up talking about certain things. So let's start. We got Vash1016. Thanks for the lengthy response about quantity versus quality. I know you think about this stuff all the time, but if I could add a few more points, as this is a business topic, it works out well. I agree. I hear your point about 50 subs for video versus 75 for high quality videos, not working out math-wise. I'll just recap. Basically, people want to, and I agree, to us to put more time into battle reports. And so essentially what that would do is make us do half as many battle reports, because we're able to squeeze in 2 per day. And so as soon as you try to do 1 longer, then you won't be able to get 2, and so we'll only be able to do half as many battle reports. So then the argument is, yeah, you could improve the vault signups, but you'd have to double the number of vault signups per battle report to make up for only making half as many, and then that would only get you back to where you started. I hear your point about 50 subs per video versus 75 per high quality video not working out math-wise, but I think you're missing a key thing in your equations: retention. Being able to retain the vault members you get with higher and higher quality content is going to be key. I noticed that I really only watched 1 to 3 battle reports a week, whereas a year ago I watched every 40K battle report that came out by you guys. There is a saturation level, I don't know what it is, that gets reached where you go from having 5K views on 1 rep to 3K on 2 reps to 1.5K on 4 and so on. Totally arbitrary numbers. That makes me ponder how many other Vault members are also using their membership less and less. Reading that again, that kind of sounds like a threat or something, but it totally isn't. My point was just that giving serious thought to keeping the fish you have caught in the boat rather than hunting for new fish becomes important to longevity of a company. That's a totally good point, and retention is a key part, because if we do half as many battle reports and we only improve by 50%, but then we improve retention by a good percentage as well, then that makes up for the other ones, and it keeps the larger number that we already have in the vault. As it stands, our retention rate is actually really good. It's incredibly high. We have, I'll share these numbers. From a trial, when people sign up for the mini wargaming trial, we get anywhere from a 70 to a 75% retention just on that, which I think is fantastic because it's a free trial. Like, I'd be happy with a 50% retention on that. And then our retention, once people are in the vault, is in the 90%, anywhere from, depends on the month. It changes month to month. So anywhere from 91 to 96% retention on that. And so we have a really good retention, but that does also mean that we're losing 4 to 9% of Vault members per month. And if that could become 3 to 8 or 2 to 7, that can make a big difference when you compound it. Because you're talking about compounding by changing all these percentages. Like, I remember one business course talked about how to double your profits, and they did it by finding 4 areas where you increase things by 20%. So the first one was increasing your revenue by 20% by raising prices. I'm not saying that we're going to do this. Another one was there was things like decreasing the cost of making stuff by a certain percentage, and there was this other area of acquiring 20% more customers. And it's just arbitrary numbers, but when you do 4 20%ers and you compound them together, it's essentially you're doubling your profits in the end. Same kind of concept where you need to focus on both acquisition and retention, because otherwise it's the whole leaky bucket concept, that every business, no exceptions, is like a leaky bucket where there's holes and you're pouring water in, or some sort of liquid or whatever you're trying to pour in, and the water represents you working to get more customers. So the water is customers. You pouring water in is you spending time putting into acquisition. And then the holes in the bucket represent you losing customers from all the sorts of reasons. And you're always going to lose customers. Even if you could make everybody 100% happy, people die. And so they will no longer be your customer. It's impossible to have a bucket concept for a business where there are no holes. And so there's 2 ways of looking at making sure you fill up that bucket or make it as full as you can. And that is, you can work harder pouring more water in, and that is important. The other one is that you can patch up holes. And the real answer to the question is you do both, that you need to focus on patching up the holes as well as pouring in more water. In other words, making the business model more sound so that more of your customers, or making a better product, it's basically making a better product, giving people more value for what they are paying for, whatever your product happens to be. And then, of course, still working really hard to pour even more in. And when you do both of those put together, then obviously it helps to grow your business faster. And you have to have a higher input than output. That's a pretty obvious thing to say, but it's very important to understand that you don't just be like, well, we have too much coming out, so let's just work on pouring more in, because unlike a bucket, most likely you're looking at a percentage that you're losing. So the faster you pour in, the faster those holes will leak as well. And so, like, if let's say we lose 10% of our customers, well, if you have 10 customers, let's say you lose 10% per month. If you have 10 customers, you only lose 1 per month. And so you only have to acquire 1 new customer per month to make up for that. But then if you say, well, I'm going to start acquiring more, and all of a sudden you acquire 1,000 customers, well, then right away you're going to start losing 100 customers per month, and then you're going to have to maintain that kind of thing. And you might think, well, I'll just keep acquiring 1,000 customers, but eventually you hit a point where you're losing 1,000 customers per month and gaining 1,000, and you can't get any further. So the only way to grow is to either improve or get even more, or to lower retention. And the real answer to the question is do both. So going back to Vash's comment about increasing the quality of the battle reports would also increase retention, I agree with that as well. Unfortunately, retention is per video or types of video is really hard to track. And whereas acquisition is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to see intent on why people sign up than why they renew. That's not to say we shouldn't focus on it. Of course, we need to. Like, for example, at least a couple of years ago, I noticed that once we started doing the quick tips, and put those in the vault, they didn't really help acquisition at all because they're kind of the best kept secret of the vault that we have daily painting tutorials, Monday to Friday. Because we can only produce the 5 per week, that we can't do the typical coupling thing. And I kind of made the mistake of putting them all in the vault. What we should have done a couple of years ago is actually have half as many go in the vault and the other half go out for free. But now that the expectation is there, I can't all of a sudden say, hey, vault members, we're going to take half of your painting tutorials away and start putting them out for free so we can do acquisition, because obviously that doesn't help retention. But anyway, when we put them in there, acquisition didn't really go up, but retention went up a lot, and it was very obvious that that was the cause of it because nothing else had really happened. And so yeah, adding that content, it wasn't, I could measure it only because we hadn't done anything else differently, and all of a sudden our acquisition went up a lot. And so that affirmed that was a good thing for retention. So whereas right now we're putting up so much stuff that making a change here or there, it'd be hard to track. And especially because our acquisition or our retention is really good right now, we're really just looking at improving it a little bit to make a big difference. So yes, I agree. We need to look at that. And having said all that, this past week I actually made the decision. I'm going to start experimenting with that, and where I actually put more time into battle reports. Like on Monday, I had a guy come in for battle reports, and I asked him if it'd be okay if we did a bigger one, and then whatever we have time for at the end, then we could just do like a kill team or something, and then I'd have like a separate series of kill teams. So there wouldn't be like the kill teams for the vault and the bigger ones for free. It would more be like on one day we film a big one that we've put a lot of time into, and then just a little kill team, and then another day we do another big one and a kill team, just as just an example, and the 2 big ones go together and the 2 kill teams go together and in their own series or whatever. It doesn't have to be kill team, just something like that. And that would allow us to produce the same amount of content, but then have other ones that might draw more. So the idea is that those 2 things together would acquire and retain more than just the 2 1,500 point games. And it's not just about making a bigger game as well. It's also about, we actually did pre-game shows. We spent more time on the post-game show, that kind of stuff, just kind of returning to all of those areas as well. Ironically, with the first game only, it took us less than half a day because it kind of got one-sided, so it won't be a good test for whether it was a good idea or not because it just went so quickly. But we'll see how people at least respond to the pre-game show and that kind of stuff. Another point, the continuing Vash's comments, another point you brought up was increasing quality of reps through new studios and minis. I agree that that helps some, but the rushing through battle reports, we barely get to see any of those details that you guys are paying for, other than in reveal videos and such. The train features are more important, and at first I love the frontline mats, and for someone not running a gaming studio, they are great. But on camera, they look so sad compared to that city fight table you guys had with the river going through it, or the Zone Mortalis tables you have set up. You guys set the bar for battle reports, but now most of the smaller guys on YouTube have frontline gaming mats, and they have similar terrain, and your minis all look very similar from 2 to 4 feet above the table. And it is the personalities and quality and consistency that keeps mini wargaming ahead, amongst other things, that is really chunked down comparison. But don't get comfortable and think that you don't need to up your game to keep up with these smaller groups. You mini wargaming might be the next blockbuster. As always, love the stuff, keep it up. Too long, didn't read. Minis are good, effects are better for on-camera quality increase, and retaining vault members will need to become a priority soon rather than later, in my opinion. Oh, it's already, like, I know what you're saying, but trust me, retention has always been on my mind. It's always been it's a big part of a subscription service. You have to think about the 2 parts, acquisition and retention. You have to think about that. And if you only focus on one or the other, or you don't focus on either, then most likely you'll be in trouble unless you're just super lucky. As for terrain, I agree. The frontline gaming mats are superbly awesome, and they have been great for us. But I also agree that we need to start. I don't think it's the fact that the frontline gaming mats are sad compared to the other terrain. I think it's more just that people like variety, and there's only so many mats, and we kind of use the same 3 or 4 because some of them don't film as well, and some of them just don't fit our terrain as well. And so we do need to step that up. I do agree, and that's been on my mind too, and that's why I've been working on that. And you may have seen this on Facebook. But for example, you can't really see this very well, but this is terrain that's coming up for one of our future narrative campaigns. And it's all like floating islands on all obsidian, and it'll be really, really cool. But that is something that's been on my mind, is improving our terrain. Because you're right, because I'm always looking for ways to improve our battle reports that don't take more time per battle report, and terrain is one of them. And you're also right, the rushing. I think the main thing that has been rushed over the past while has been the Warzone Apothis battle reports. I think the regular battle reports, maybe they are being rushed, but not nearly as much as the Warzone Apothis. The issue with the Warzone Apothis battle reports is that you had to get 2 done in a day. You had to, because they're all sequential. They all affect each other. On top of that, with that gaming map back there, everybody filmed their intro in front of it. So what you didn't see when we were filming the intro is sometimes 2 or 3 other producers are lined up waiting. So that takes even more time. So yeah, they were very rushed. And so if I were to do it again, I definitely wouldn't have more than 1 producer filming on the same day, so that they could take more time and kind of get into that. But there would be a lot of things I'd do differently there. So I agree with everything you're saying, and we're working on fixing it. So it's good feedback, and definitely things that we need to think about. J. Pederdizis 14. All right, Matt, so let's say a very wealthy businessman were to leave you $100 million in his will with the stipulation that every cent had to be spent on mini wargaming. What do you do? Somebody asked me a question like that last week, $1 million, and I basically said I didn't really know, because it's one thing to all of a sudden have a windfall of money, but you still need to build a business that has a profit. Like, for example, I could say, well, with $100 million, I could buy my own building, we could build superbly awesome studios, hire 20 more producers, and then start producing all this stuff. But the question is, yeah, I have the money for it, but would that turn a profit? Because eventually that $100 million would be gone. And so what I think I would do with it, I don't think I could spend all of it. It would be nice just to stick it in the bank and have it as a backup. I would use it to basically do fixed cost things. So I'd probably buy a really nice building, or actually with $100 million, I would build a mini wargaming headquarters, kind of the mecca of that, just where people want to come. And we would build studios. Now, the one thing I have to be careful of is if it's too big and too expensive, yeah, sure, I have the money just to buy it without a mortgage, but there's still property taxes and utilities that would go up. And so I have to make sure that doesn't go up so much that our monthly profits basically disappear. So that's one thing to think of. You might think, well, you still have lots of the other money, but that's not the point. You don't want to build a business that's not turning a profit, even if you have all this money left over. That's just not a good way to do it. So I still want to build a building, basically pour that money into building really awesome studios. I'd want more than just like the 4 studios that we're going to have, not because I want to be filming in more than 4 at a time, but because it'll give us some variety. So I'm sure Dave wouldn't mind doing like a dozen studios. I'd still probably keep this relatively same number of employees, at least until the vault goes up. And then we would just you choose a studio that best suits the battle that you're about to do. So there'd be like different kinds of sci-fi, a few different kinds of fantasy ones. And some of the sci-fi would be generic enough that it could work for different games like Infinity or Star Wars, that kind of stuff. And the fantasy stuff, there would be some that they'd be generic enough that they could work for War Machine or Fantasy or Age of Sigmar, that kind of thing. And just kind of have all that. And then also put a lot of money into getting more models and more terrain, and a lot of cool custom terrain and terrain boards built. Probably outfit with some new equipment, just like really improving the equipment and all that. Although that's not as big a deal. I think our cameras do a pretty good job as they are. So it'd be like that kind of stuff, all the fixed cost stuff. I wouldn't use it necessarily. Or maybe I'd pour a lot of money into like updating the website, because it's kind of a one-time cost. It's not. Obviously, there's ongoing maintenance, but there's the burst of money could allow us to put even more into updating the website. And of course, like I said last week, give nice big bonuses to all the employees, and myself, of course, too, because that's technically going towards mini wargaming. Well, this is a hypothetical $100 million situation, so I wouldn't cheer, because I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, I'd of course do that as well, because hey, why not? Yeah, and then there'd still be like another 90 million left over, at least. And I don't know what I'd do with that except stick it in the bank, and then ongoing just kind of be spoiled and be able to pour ridiculous amounts of money into our terrain and our models and our production quality, all that kind of stuff. Bora, hi Matt, you should make special Vault battle reports with higher point games and special effects. So you invest more time and money into content that is actually paid for. Besides, you don't get money per battle report per se, but as a flat fee per month. Personally, I'd be perfectly fine with to watch a 1-hour battle report only every second day, which is awesome in regards to army display, morale, and effects. In fact, I would upgrade my membership for that. Maybe I'm talking just for myself, but I doubt not. Now that goes back to the whole discussion, and I agree with you. The trick is, like, I know some people are like, well, the Vault members pay for theirs, so they need to have the higher quality. And I agree that we need to focus on making sure they get at least as good quality as the stuff that goes on YouTube. But what I've noticed is it's not the Vault battle report that draws in people. That's the retention part. It's the free one that draws in people. If the free battle report is really good, then it gets more signups because they're like, if this battle report is good, then the Vault one has got to be at least this good. And so the trick is to make them both awesome. It's not to focus on one over the other, but to make them both awesome. Or at the very least, make the free one really awesome and the Vault one even more awesome. But the free one still has to be really awesome, because if it's just like, we just kind of throw it out there because it's just for the free people and not for the Vault people, yeah, retention-wise, that's great. But for acquisition, that doesn't do us any good. So really, we have to just focus on increasing quality. See, the nice thing about our business model is in order to improve acquisition and retention, we do the same thing, which is improve the quality of our videos. That does both. And that's really what we have to focus on. Now, that's not as simple as that, but that is one way of looking at it. Electric Andre, hello Matt, you said that you would rather continue leasing your building instead of buying it due to having to hold a mortgage. Though it sounds like you only lease part of the building. Yeah, we only lease about maybe 2/3 of the first floor, and we have a little storage room in the basement. But there's still a full upper floor and most of the basement that is not, we don't lease. Could not the rest of the building pay for the mortgage and be a secondary source of income for the company? Or do you think the time that would have to go into being a landlord not be worth it overall? It's quite possible that if we were to buy the building, that we would be able to pay for the mortgage and bills and stuff through the other tenants that are here. But I have zero interest, absolutely no interest in being a landlord. There's a couple huge disadvantages to that at this point of our business. Well, first off, we'd have to get a rather large mortgage. And with business mortgages, you have to do, at least in Canada, you have to do a minimum down payment. I think it's about 25%. So we'd have to come up with the cash to do the down payment. And that cash could have been put towards other aspects of the business. So it ties up equity, essentially. Now, if we make money off the building, that can be made up for in the long run, but we're not in the real estate business. The second disadvantage, I guess there's 3 disadvantages. One is that money part. The second disadvantage is then we'd have to be a landlord. We'd have to deal with all the issues of being a landlord. Sure, I could hire a property manager, but in the end, we still have to deal with it. Something breaks, we put the money into that. Now, theoretically, you would save money in the long run, but you still have the headache and the stress of it. So that's not a big desire of mine. And third, at least in Welland, selling commercial real estate takes a very long time. So if we were to buy this building and later find out that we'd rather have a different building, we'd be stuck with this one. It would just take forever to sell it. Most commercial real estate takes years. Like stuff that I looked at years ago is still on the market. Maybe it's been purchased and it's just being flipped. I don't know. But still, it takes years for commercial real estate to sell, unless you sell it at a ridiculously good price. Obviously, anything will sell fast if you put it at an insanely low price. And so I'm just not interested. We're not ready at this point of our business. And it's quite possible we'll never be ready. And we'll never want to tie up money, because there's always the question of liquidity as well. That sure, you might be making more profit per month, but if it's all tied up, then who cares? You need cash. You need to actually put money into the bank so that you can use that money for other stuff, or to increase pay. Like in the end, we want to make money. We don't want to just build assets. And so that's kind of the big thing. So not really interested in at all in even getting a building, let alone this building right now. Jimmy T92. Hey Matt, if Games Workshop were to go under, would it be possible for another company to buy the IP rights to the Age of Sigmar and 40K models? Games Workshop would never go under without somebody else buying them. A big company like that, somebody is always willing to buy it. That doesn't mean that will continue the strength of the business, because if it's bought by somebody who doesn't care as much about miniature wargaming and they're more interested in the IP for video games or movies or things like that, you can see the miniatures aspect of it kind of going away or becoming lower quality while they focus the IP on bigger money things like movies and video games. So yes, I would be surprised if Games Workshop were to go under, period. And if they did, I'd be surprised that during that they weren't just acquired by somebody else. Electric Andre, ahoy hoy Matt. With the upcoming federal election, politics, a warning. You might want to skip the next 5 minutes. I don't know if this will be offensive or not. With the upcoming federal election in Canada, are you concerned at all as a small business owner? Or does owning a business impact how you vote? Example, the NDP promising to lower the tax rate on small businesses. Thanks muchly, and forever fearing the Lehman Russes. Without actually going into who I'm going to vote for, because that'll inevitably offend somebody, am I worried as a small business owner? No, not really, because it's kind of, politics is kind of a frustrating thing. I've actually been doing lots of research this campaign season because I really wanted to make it an informed choice when I vote this time. Normally I do some research, but this time I'm doing a lot more research. I'm watching more debates, I'm reading more stuff, and it's frustrating because all of the parties are just frustrating. They don't talk enough about what they're going to do. All they do is they sling mud at everybody else. Even the party that I want to vote for frustrates the heck out of me because all they do, I even followed their Facebook page. I basically was about to go, no, I didn't follow their Facebook page. I was going to follow their Facebook page because I was going to follow all three of them, Conservative, Liberal, and NDP, because I just wanted to kind of keep up to date on their policies and things that they're going to do. But when I went on their Facebook page, their past 10 posts were just mudslinging posts. They were just like how this person is not going to be able to do their job, and how these ones are actually lying, and how these ones have this in their past. They spend so little time talking about how they are going to make improvements and more time in mudslinging. So it's really annoying. So you have to kind of I just ignore all of that, because even the party I want to vote for right now, and I'm pretty sure of who I'm going to vote for after reading through everything, is just utterly annoying in that area. And so I don't believe, I basically just kind of take the stance of, if they say they're going to do it, that's how I'll kind of determine if I'm going to vote for them, because that's, people can say, well, they didn't do what they did before. Nobody's going to be able to do everything they say. Nobody's going to be able to keep all the promises they make. That's just the fact of the matter is, when they get into office, things are different than just they can promise the world, but once they get in there, they only have 4 years to actually do stuff, and that's not very long at all. And so am I concerned? No, because all the parties are either not talking about lowering the small business tax rate or are talking about it. Either way, I'd like to see corporate taxes go down, of course. Everybody wants their taxes to go down, but I really think in the case of small business corporate tax, it should be cut hugely, because large corporations, I get that, if the dispersion of money doesn't work as well in large corporations. Like Target shuts down in Canada and the CEO walks away with $80 million in severance from a failed job. That's just ridiculous. But in a small business, if that business goes out of business, the business owner walks away bankrupt usually. And the nice thing is, in small businesses compared to large businesses, the ratio of earnings of the owner to the employees is much, 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 much smaller than the ratio of earnings in large business CEOs to their employees. CEOs make too much money. It's ridiculous. You can say, well, they're the CEO. Who cares? Who cares? They need everybody to work. And so the fact that they're making that much more money than their employees, if you just take part of their income, then they don't need that much money. Nobody needs that much money, and gives everybody raises rather than them making that much more money. It could be much more equally dispersed. Small businesses by nature have to do this because they don't have as much money, and so they have to put that money into their employees, and hopefully they want to as well. But even if they don't want to, they have to. The ratio has to be smaller, because they're a small business. If they're making tons of money and then they're not investing that into their employees, most likely they're going to go to business soon, because some other small business will, and they'll do better much quicker. Whereas a large business is kind of a bigger machine. So corporate taxes for large businesses, whatever, just keep taxing them. But small businesses, you lower that percentage, that money is going to go into the economy. It's not going to go into a millionaire's portfolio for some obscure investments that do nothing for the economy. It'll go, even if the owner takes all of the extra money, that owner is not a millionaire most likely because it's a small business. By definition, the small business itself couldn't make you a millionaire because as soon as you're making millions of dollars, you're no longer a small business, or at least to a certain extent. So even if the owner took all that money, most likely it's all going to get spent and put into the economy. Whereas in a large corporation, you lower tax rates. And I know people can argue this, and that's fine. I don't. That doesn't bother me. But I just think that corporate taxes on small businesses should be cut to next to nothing. If I wouldn't be have a problem with them being 0% and not have them at all. But we need taxes to some degree to cover expenses for certain things. But so I'd sooner see corporate tax go down than income tax. Even though I'd love for income tax to go down too, but at the same time, I understand that there's money that has to go in order to pay for all the social services and everything like that. So, in short, no, I'm not worried. I wish they would lower it. NDP promising to lower it 2% from 15 to 13%, I think is what they promised. That's not a big difference, like 2%. If you're a small business, then 2% is just a smaller amount of money. So, whatever. So no, not worried. As long as it doesn't go up, that would be annoying. Mentality. So, Mr. M, we meet again. Do you believe, and I know you're going to be talking about your own beliefs, and that doesn't necessarily mean the same to everyone, although you probably have to point it out, hee. Oh, wait, you just did. Do you believe that religion affects your business? So, religion alert here. Does God look and see you being devout and give you more vault signups? Because you spread the good word, does he make more people watch videos? Will you make better business decisions or be offered because of your faith in him? That kind of stuff. I think your success is due to your hard work and open mind, but I'm an atheist or Buddhist thing, or basically just my own religion of right and wrong, haha. Have a blessed day. I can still say that, right? Of course you can. Definitely. I definitely think it impacts it. Does it make me richer? Not necessarily, because sometimes we have to make sacrifices, because in the end, what's more important? In the end, I'm eventually going to die. It won't matter how much money I had made. What'll have mattered is the decisions that I've made. And so, do I believe that God blesses people that follow his commandments? Absolutely. Is it always monetarily? Not necessarily. So, but at the same time, like I feel that I'm very fortunate, very blessed because of the position that I'm in right now. But at the same time, if you were to remove the essential things from my life, like my family, if I was just a single guy doing all this, I'd feel a lot less purpose in my life. The business is not enough to give me real purpose in my life. And so I'm grateful that it's basically a means to an end. It's a means to feed my family so that we can survive and focus on more important things, essentially is what it is. We, of course, have to spend a lot of our life working. That's part of mortality and part of this life. But yes, I do definitely think it affects it. Sometimes it can hurt it. It definitely can. We can make decisions that other companies are willing to do. Like, obviously, there's certain industries that do things that I totally disagree with, and they make lots and lots and lots and lots of money. But in the end, they'll die too, and none of that money will go with them, but the choices that they made and the people they became will go with them. So that's kind of the way I see it. That's the importance of kind of keeping that perspective as to what is actually important in this life. And money is important because we need it. And we need it to feed ourselves, our families, to help others around us as well. But in the end, that's why it's important, not because it gives us the security of doing whatever we want, whenever we want. That's that whole idea of the lifestyle of being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, that whole, the whole lottery mentality of, hey, you never know, then you don't have to worry about work and all this other stuff. Yes, it's all lies. That doesn't bring true happiness or long-term happiness, whatever you want to call it. So yes, definitely, it affects my business, both for good and for bad, if you're looking at it as a bottom line kind of thing. Electric Andre, have you ever considered putting in eye holes in your studio doors so that people can know if they're being interrupted or not? We don't need to. You can just, all you have to do is listen. You can tell. Everybody kind of has this way of talking when the camera is on. Some people it's more obvious than others. It's funny to listen to people when the camera turns on. They talk differently. They actually have a different way of talking. And so when you're listening at the door, you can usually tell if the camera's on. And all you have to do is wait for a beep, because the camera makes a beeping sound when it turns on and off. And as soon as it beeps, you open the door. Or what you do is you just do a light tap, and the person knows that as soon as they finish filming that clip that they can let you in. That's a nice thing about the way we film our battle reports, is that they're all in short clips. So you're never going to wait more than a few seconds, or maybe like 30 seconds. Okay, we're trying to find business questions here. These are other questions. Too long a barrel on the quality versus quantity. I do like having a lot of variety, but maybe a 3-to-1 ratio for your content producers to keep the numbers up, but then pairing 2 vids from 2 content providers for the same free and vault model. This would be like an awesome treat that free viewers may see as awesome and then have to get the second one without question. For us vault members, would look forward each month for and keep us hooked. Being hooked and repeated by my subscription for the first time, so keep up the good work. Oh, I see. So you're saying like we should like one time for every 3, have 2 content producers actually fighting each other. So because that often gets a higher quality, because both people are good on camera and both can handle the camera and all that. Fluff matters. How do you decide what studios will be what theme? Is it a collaborative decision, or is it down to the person working on it? Depends on the studio. Dave totally ran with the first 2, his studio and the Orc studio. When it came to my studio, I kind of had some say. Not that he didn't give me say, but more that I didn't really know what I wanted. And so I knew what I didn't want. I knew kind of the colors I was going for. So the fact that the walls are kind of bluish, there's a lot of greenery in it. I had the idea for the sunset, I think. I can't remember now. But I wanted something that was brighter-ish, less oppressive than the Orc studio and Dave's studio. Those studios look awesome, but I just wanted something that would just be nice to go into. And I really like it because you walk in, you're surrounded by greenery. Sure, it's a building that's been destroyed, but you've got this beautiful sunset and you've got this greenery, and it's just nice. I just like that. The fantasy studio I think will be my favorite though. I think it's going to be the most cozy. But essentially, Dave has just taken the lead and just done these, which has been great. Jubal. What's the difference between market research, sales, and marketing? When would you carry out each for a generic business and for mini wargaming? I run a business and mix all the above and would welcome advice. For example, if you were trying to research the market to find out what the relative vault sign-up rates are for higher quality videos versus the current 2 per day games, you might just use sales, or is it marketing, to make a few of each type and see what works. It's hard to define each thing perfectly because, for example, when I talked about sales and retention, those 2 overlap with what we do, because if a video couple get a lot of people to sign up, clearly that makes people really like the video, so it's also going to be something that keeps people in the vault. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Market research, that's tough because, and it's funny that Games Workshop says we don't do market research, and that's too bad, because I know why they say they don't do market research, because they feel that there's really nothing to compare to, and in a sense they're right, but they do, and also market research is not going onto forums and seeing what people are saying, because the thing is, internet commenters, whether YouTube videos, on these videos, on forums, do not represent the majority of people. They are the loud minority. Does that mean they don't have good comments? Of course they have great comments a lot of times, but it also doesn't quite represent what people are thinking. For example, you might watch a video, look at the comments, see a lot of the comments are negative and think, oh, I guess people don't really want this. A great example is the SciShow on YouTube. A lot of YouTube channels over the past couple of years have been finally trying to monetize their videos through things like Patreon or Subbable before it was purchased by Patreon. And because they realized that they couldn't just maintain a business or grow a business on the YouTube revenues. Not everybody's PewDiePie, who can make millions of dollars just by making the videos that he does. Like, only a few are lucky enough to have hit that kind of saturation level. And I say lucky because is PewDiePie the best at what he does? Absolutely not. Is he bad? He's not bad or anything. I don't watch him. I just don't like the style. But there's tons of other people that do just what he does. but it's a mixture of luck and other factors as well. But either way, like SciShow, for example, they have a whole team of people researching, post-production, pre-production, everything. And or you think of like a Tabletop, Geek and Sundry with Tabletop, like the amount of effort that goes into that. They don't make enough money from like anywhere near from the YouTube revenue to cover that business. And I can say that with certainty, knowing from my point of view how much money you make with your videos. And so people have been kind of getting more to the Patreon thing. At first, I think more viewers are getting used to the idea, but I remember going on Subbable at the time that SciShow was on, and they actually made it public how much they were making per month with that, and just for SciShow. And on Subbable, I think it showed like $20,000 or $30,000 a month. And I was like, cool, they're doing really well with it. And they had a video on Subbable that's the kind of their pitch video. And so I went into it, but it's actually embedded from YouTube. So I went onto YouTube and I watched that video there. And I looked at the comments, and 99% of them were super negative. Super, super, super negative. They were just like awful. Just totally rude, and I can't believe you're trying to rip us off. Now you're expecting us to pay money for these free videos, because why would we pay money for something we can get for free? Even though you have like 10 people working for you and you're not making hardly any money from the YouTube revenue, we think we should be able to watch it for free. And it was just absolutely awful. And if I were to do market research on whether I should start a Patreon account or a Subbable account, and I watched that video from a popular YouTube producer and I saw the comments, I'd be like, oh, forget it. People really don't want this. If I hadn't seen that they're actually making, I think it was at the time, $25,000 to $30,000 a month from their Subbable subscribers. Guess what? $25,000 to $30,000 a month is more, much more than their YouTube revenue. And that would actually, if you do the math, that would pay for the team that they have, at least for that show. And they have another one for one of their other shows as well. But still, market research, if I didn't have access to that number, would have told me don't do that. People don't want to see it. Same thing as when you go on forums like DakaDaka and Warseer, which are awesome forums, and you see people complaining about 40K or complaining about Age of Sigmar or complaining about this or that or the other thing, or if you go on Bell of Lost Souls and read comments and people are like, oh, I can't believe this is so crappy. That doesn't really tell you anything about how the market is perceiving it. Most people don't leave comments. Myself, I run a YouTube business essentially, and I rarely like or comment on a video. I'll subscribe, because not to support them, but because I want to keep up to date on their videos. But I rarely like a video, let alone comment on a video. And you think somebody like me who's online all the time would do that. I watch tons of YouTube stuff. I'm a silent viewer. I'm a silent fan of many different YouTube channels. They would never know. I've even signed up for the Patreon for SciShow because I just really like their show and I know that they need that. But that's just the majority of people are like that. So market research is tough because most companies aren't public. Games Workshop is the only public company that I know of that does miniatures. And that's nice because you can kind of look at their sales and it gives you ideas of where their customers are and what they're buying and what's working for them. And that's nice. But all the other companies, like for me, when I do market research, should we cover this game or that game? I don't know. This is really because there's no solid data out there to tell me that I should do it. Of course, if I were to post a question, should I cover this game? Everybody's answers in the comments would be yes, definitely. And with occasional no, you're already doing enough, or I don't care about that. But the majority would say yes. But then, here's another example. A lot of people, it felt like, were asking us to sell t-shirts years and years ago. So I said, fine, it looks like we can make some money selling t-shirts. So I went out and I had a huge amount made. And actually, by a huge amount, it was 100 t-shirts made. That was a lot for us back then because we had to invest like $1,000, which years ago was like, it was tough to do that. And I think it took us 2 years to sell all 100 of those t-shirts. But everybody was asking for them. There was so many comments. If you sold t-shirts, I would buy them. Emails and requests on the forum and on our video comment, everywhere. Personal emails to me saying, I want to buy t-shirts. And then we say, hey, we're selling t-shirts now. Cricket. What people say is often different from what they do. So market research is tough. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You definitely need to do it. But you have to kind of learn to listen to the comments and then filter them. And because most of them don't know your business. They don't see what you see. And so they can't possibly give They can't know everything that's behind the scenes because we're transparent with what we do. That doesn't mean that you see everything. Not because we hide it, but just because there's just more than we could show in just some sit and talks and some behind the scenes and open vaults and all that. So yeah, so you just have to you have to just be kind of saturated by it all. You have to be involved. You have to be reading lots of comments. But at the same time, you have to really look at your numbers. Your own numbers are probably your best source of data for what is good to do and what is not good to do. And that's your market research. Marketing, of course, like you're asking the difference between market research, sales, and marketing. Well, if you're talking about sales, like selling, I would see if I were to try to differentiate those, to me, the sales part is on our website where you go and it's like, hey, this is the vault, sign up. To me, that's sales. Marketing is, I kind of put that more as like an advertising thing. Not necessarily that you're buying advertising, but that that's where you put your effort into trying to reach people to get them over to your salespeople. So if you look at it as like a door-to-door salesman, the marketing part of it is them walking door to door, and the sales part of it is when they get inside the door and then they try to sell whatever product that they're doing. So that would be kind of, to me, that's the difference between the two. Obviously there's overlap and there's just semantics and all of that too. So you just have to always be doing it. You always have to look at your data. The key thing is that since your data is the best thing, you need to always be trying new things, because then you'll have hands-on data of how well that worked for you. And then just make the best decisions that you can. It'll never be perfect though. Well, that's all the time we have for the free version. I hope that you enjoyed this. Go ahead and click the link below for the Sit and Vault, another 30 minutes of me answering more questions about business. And remember, next week's topic is about things you want to see us improve on our website and overall. Thanks for watching. Happy wargaming.